Welcome back everyone, it's Vaz again with another video from World of Warships Legends. And today we have another Versus for you. In Versus we compare two similar and readily available ships to determine if one is better than the other. We then tally the points up as we go, and at the end we hope to determine a winner. We'll also throw in a little bit of information and some tips on the builds and playstyles of these ships. And today we have a matchup of two USN Tier 5 battleships, the California and New Mexico. The New Mexico is the standard American Tier 5 tech tree battleship, while the California is a premium ship that was available in the Bureau to everyone starting last year in June 2020, but that project was recently retired in April of 2021. That means if you haven't started the project yet, or you're new to the game and watching this in the future, you've unfortunately missed out on getting the California for free. I imagine it'll be re-released somehow again in the future, but it may be a while before we see it again. And those are the main reasons I wanted to do this Versus as soon as I could find the time. First up, a little bit of info on both ships. The New Mexico was the lead ship in her class and was commissioned in 1914. The California was part of the Tennessee class and was commissioned in 1921. The Tennessee class was the class immediately following the New Mexico class, so their designs are very similar. California in the game is the post-Pearl Harbor 1944 version, which was refloated and refit after being sunk in the 1941 attack. Interestingly enough, in real life, both ships were equipped with a torpedo tube on either side of the hull. Next, we're going to talk about the playstyle of these ships and the commander build I recommend. You're going to want to play these ships mid to long range to mitigate their poor maneuverability. Because of that, I recommend Sims as your commander. I use an all-out sniper build in order to keep my distance from those nasty HE spammers. These slow-moving American battleships with their weak superstructures are juicy targets for them. For Sims, the skills I've chosen are Flammable Cannoneer, although if you find yourself on fire a lot, you may want to swap to not one for the nuisance. Then I've chosen Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, and Reaching Out XXL. For the legendary skill, I go with Will to Rebuild, although the newish skill, Fight Fire with Fire, is also a good option. There are a lot of choices for inspirations, but I'd recommend Cunningham as I would for all battleships. And here I've chosen Madden to help reduce the reload time and increase the turret traverse speed. Celiax, Takagi, or De Revel are also other options I consider for inspirations. And now we'll move on to upgrades. Both ships come with 2 starting upgrade slots, while additionally, the New Mexico has 3 unlockable upgrades. When it comes to slot 1, I'm basically just trying to avoid main battery mod 2 because I don't want to add 5% to my reload time. It's already slow enough for both of these ships. If you're playing at distance for most of the game, you won't make a lot of use of the extra turret traverse speed anyways. On the California, I've swapped to the new AA Guns mod 2 because why not just make it a full-on nightmare for enemy carriers. And for the New Mexico, although I have a secondary battery mod chosen here, if I were going to take it out in the future, I'd be switching it up to AA Guns mod 2 as well. And that's because you won't be using your secondaries very much if you're playing a sniper build in these ships. In slot 2, your choices are Steering Gears mod 2, Propulsion mod 2, and Damage Control System mod 2. For the California, I've chosen Propulsion mod 2 to help with its slow speed, but for the New Mexico, I've chosen the Damage Control mod. All these choices have their uses, and it all comes down to your personal preference. Next, we have the Loadout screen. I've removed all the boosters and camo and put a commander on each ship that won't affect any of the stats shown. And the only mod that skews any stats shown will be the secondary mod in the New Mexico, but we can account for that when we get to it. All the consumables here are exactly the same on these ships with the exception of one, the repair party. The California can heal an extra 26 hit points per second, which adds up to a few thousand over the course of 3 repair parties. Extra HP can make all the difference, and this much gives the California the first point of our matchup. Now let's move over to the stats screen. First up is survivability. The California enjoys over 5,000 more hit points than the New Mexico, netting in another point in the matchup. We're going to save the armor for the armor viewer. And lastly, their torp belts are equal. Next up is artillery. Both ships have the same number of turrets and the same caliber of guns. The New Mexico has a tiny 200 range meter advantage, That's not enough to call it a definitive advantage. The 4.2-second differential in reload time is quite a big difference though, and that gives the California yet another point. Everything else in that column is equal, so let's shift over to the secondaries. Without the secondary mod that increases the range on the New Mexico, its secondary range is actually 4 kilometers, equal to the California. But it has 2 extra secondaries overall, giving it the DPM edge, so we're going to give it a point for having better secondaries. Of note, the Cali's secondaries are actually dual purpose, so we'll see them listed in the next screen as well, which is anti-aircraft defense. We finally have AA stats back in the game, and so we can use them in our versus from now on. However, in this matchup, there's not much to say here that California has some of the best AA in the entire game. It has a whopping 154 AA guns on board. It's like Drachenfeld says in his California video, there must have been an engineer walking around during the refit saying, "What's that empty space doing there? Put a gun there, you idiot." The New Mexico doesn't have terrible AA, but it's nothing compared to the Calis, so a point goes to the premium ship. Next up we have Maneuverability. The speed and turning circle of the ships are pretty much equal, but the New Mexico does have a quicker rudder, which can give it an edge when it comes to torp dodging, so it does get a point for that. Finally on the stats screen we have the concealment, which is nearly identical on both ships, so we're just going to move right along to the armor viewer. The armor is very similar on both ships, with the only real things of note being that the Cali's bow armor is a single inch thicker, while the New Mexico has thicker armor on the lower part of the superstructure. Neither ship can be said to have an advantage over the other, so we're going to call it a draw. As for the Citadels, the New Mexico Citadel is just above the waterline, while the Cali's is noticeably below. However, the New Mexico has a much thicker torpedo bulkhead, so we're going to call this category even as well. And with that, that brings us to our summary. The California has a better repair party, more hit points, a quicker reload time, and overall better anti-aircraft defense. It also has the perk of being a premium ship, which increases its credit earning potential. However, it just gets an asterisk because it doesn't affect the actual gameplay. The strengths of the New Mexico are better secondaries and a quicker rudder shift time. Add it all up and we do have a victor in this matchup. It's the California. Here's hoping that it makes a return to the game as a global XP ship or a ship for steel in the future. What do you guys think about this matchup? Which ship do you like better? What do you think about the California not being available going forward? Let me know in the comments down below. If you did like that video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more of my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, stay healthy and do what makes you happy.